In the first episode, we introduced Guido Preparata's central thesis, that the rise of Nazism should not be treated as a creature of chance, but as something that emerged within an engineered terrain of instability. Now we begin Chapter 1. Preparata titles it, The Eurasian Embrace, Laying Siege to Germany with World War I, 1900 to 1918. This chapter is his geopolitical foundation. Before Hitler, before Weimar, before the 1930s, Preparata wants us to look at the imperial strategy of the world of 1900. His argument is that Britain's primary fear was not Germany alone, but Germany allied with Russia, a continental fusion that would end British supremacy. He calls this nightmare the Eurasian Embrace. Germany as the imperial upstart. Preparata begins with the sudden emergence of the Second German Reich. Germany unified late, industrialized rapidly, and appeared in his words as an imperial upstart. He portrays the Reich as a violent mixture, Prussian militarism, and extraordinary scientific and cultural achievement. Germany's problem, he argues, was not weakness. It was ambition without imperial maturity. The Reich sought colonies, a place in the sun, and increasingly a navy. And it is here, Preparata says, that Britain begins to see Germany not as a partner, but as an approaching rival. The navy and the limits of British tolerance. For Britain, the empire was maritime. Its lifeline was the Royal Navy. Preparata emphasizes that Germany's naval expansion was not interpreted as defensive, but as an encroachment upon the instrument of British world management. Preparata is not claiming Germany had already matched Britain's navy, but that Britain feared Germany could eventually force parity. A continental power with an ocean fleet is something different. It suggests global aspiration. And Preparata's claim is that by 1900, Britain concluded Germany could indeed pull it off. It could temporarily paralyze Europe, defeat France, and then turn east. And that brings us to the deeper nightmare. The chief objective, Preparata writes, was the prevention of a durable alliance between Germany and Russia. If Germany and Russia fused, German technology and Russian manpower would form an immense continental fortress. Preparata connects this fear to Halford Mackinder's geopolitics, the Heartland theory. Mackinder warned that a consolidated Eurasian pivot could become unconquerable. Preparata treats Mackinder's 1904 essay as essentially an open declaration of imperial strategy, that sea powers must prevent the Heartland from consolidating. Thus, Britain's strategy becomes, in his telling, permanent encirclement, a siege. Encirclement and the Entente system. Here Preparata moves from theory to diplomacy. Britain shifts towards France, then towards Russia. The Triple Entente forms. Preparata's interpretation is not that Germany invented the coming war, but that Britain progressively constructed the alliance architecture of encirclement. He argues that German rhetoric about Einkreisen, encirclement, was not pure paranoia. It reflected strategic reality. And he claims that German bombast was nervousness, not master planning, a state with too much to lose. World War I as the first act of the siege. So what is World War I in Preparata's framework? It is not a tragic accident. It is the first act of a siege. He writes that World War I completed the initial stage of Germany's annihilation and brought the United States onto the grand chessboard. Germany loses the war, but not by occupation. In fact, the enemies never occupied Germany or penetrated very far into Germany for any length of time, so its elites remain intact, its structure survives. Meanwhile, France is a different story. This is also why Germany felt betrayed by the Versailles Treaty. They had held their ground. They had not been invaded. And yet the Versailles Treaty foisted the guilt upon Germany and demanded insane repercussions and territorial concessions as well. In effect, Germany got a very bad deal. But with Britain's fleet blocking their ports and starving the German population, they didn't have much of a choice. And Preparata's argument is that this sets up Act 2, the interwar incubation of reactionary force. World War I is not the conclusion, it is the opening. Now, to read Preparata responsibly, he is making maximal claims. He often writes polemically. He treats British strategy as coherent across generations. One need not accept every element of intentionality to still recognize the structural insight. The imperial competition, alliance engineering, and geopolitical fear shaped 1914. The question is not whether history is a puppet show. The question is how institutions normalize catastrophe. So Chapter 1 establishes Preparata's foundation. Germany rises. Britain fears the Heartland. Encirclement forms. World War I becomes the first siege. In the next episode we move into Chapter 2. Versailles, Russia's revolution, and Preparata's startling claim that Hitler's incubation begins immediately after the First World War ends. Because in this book, peace is never peace. It is preparation. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis valuable, please like the video and subscribe for more episodes in the Conjuring Hitler series, where we examine how catastrophe is prepared long before it appears.